A great talk show unravels your thinking, makes you stop to listen, engages you in a debate of opinions.
I believe this man knows what he is doing. He is a Nigerian.
And ultimately brings you to the king of talk radio, Femidlive. This is Femidlive.
This is the place you need to be right now. Just listening to your radio or listening via the application we do have going on the Apple Store right now, which would have to be JFM app, where you can listen anytime. Thanks for joining in this evening. This is Room for Debate. Big stories to definitely cover this very evening. It's all about the money. What time and condition do you need to borrow someone money? What time and condition do you need to collect money? Well, these are some of the things we're looking at. Devaluation is becoming a big factor. It was once talked about by the Nigerian government, by IMF, by World Bank, but somehow it plays its way back into the conversation yet again. Also, a conversation to look at for the President Muhammadu Buhari, earlier on today received a leadership award alongside with former President Goodluck Jonathan, and yes, Professor Jaga as well, earlier on today. Some say it was an award that just possibly would have been framed best for pictures, because the three men standing together only know the true story of what happened in the 2015 election. Also, listen close to what Abdulsalami Abubakar, the former leader of Nigeria, had to say regarding moving the country forward. And the FCC chairman also gave strong warning that he is coming after looters alongside with his agency at this time. Obasanjo on economic solution, also part of the conversation today. But devaluing the Naira, what exactly does it mean? IMF, World Bank, these are actors you cannot take out of your movie script. They are right there. They determine what happens next, right here, even today. This is Room for Debate with Femidlive. It's a good time to get started. Let's get started now. Welcome to the show.
This is Femidlive.
A day in politics is a year, but then who cares? Oh, you should care. It's not just about what was said or what happened, where, when, how, who knows where. Next, let's understand the story that changes our lives every single day. Join me every day for politics and current affairs more than ever before. I'm Femi D. Amelin.
JFM 101.9.
This is Femidlive.
Welcome to the show. Let's get started now. Let's talk about some of the latest story. Well, yesterday, much of the conversation was if there's something wrong, possibly wrong with the economic situation in Nigeria, somehow it may play out to determine what happens in the likes of ECOWAS. But even at this time, the integration of various countries across Africa is becoming more needful and more integrated than ever before. Earlier on today, an African passport was launched, and it best describes a situation where you hold an African passport. It could be considered as your entry into another African country. The president of the African Development Bank Group, Akiumi Ayodeji Adeshina, yesterday described the newly introduced African passport as a symbol of continental integration. In his words, he said, "It's such a delight to be able to have an African passport." He also said he was speaking on an occasion that brought about the launch, and he said African institutions can finally work together more than ever before. If the passport is acceptable across at least 38 countries, he said it will reduce the cost of doing business on the continent. Is that a guarantee that things will be done differently? That when I leave Nigeria to go do business in Ghana, I would not feel different, or I would not find so much resistance. Remember, harmonizing the different economic situation of various countries across Africa has become one of the biggest factors, with Nigeria still trying to hold on to the claim that they are the biggest GDP, with South Africa constantly racing to go past Nigeria. That becomes a factor. Nigeria is struggling with an inflation rate of 17.1%, and that would have to be the latest source of concern for investors, for loan givers, for the owners of the country itself, but more importantly, for Nigerians themselves. The big question not to miss out on then would be, what do we do with ourselves at this time? When you look into your wallet at any point in time, you know exactly. You have the mental picture of when you have 200 Naira. You know when you have 1,000 Naira. In fact, when you keep a mental picture of how much you have in your money, you're very, very careful every time you have to walk past a lady selling eggs, so that you don't push her over, or she doesn't run into you and lay claims that you broke her eggs, or you broke the crate of eggs, which, by the way, used to be below 1,000 Naira. And if you have less than 1,000 Naira right now, you should be expecting to pay over 2,000 Naira. What about the bag of rice? What if by any chance you run into somebody holding a bag of rice? Peradventure, that was not the plan, and the rice suddenly breaks out and pours into the gutter. You should be looking at having between 25,000 Naira and if not up to 40,000 Naira, depending on the grade of rice that you have definitely caused an accident from. Well, it's not an accidental servant. It's not a situation where being broke is an accident. It's a pattern we've seen coming for many months right now, which brings to fore the very fundamental question about the performance of some of the financial principles that we do have, from the likes of the CBN to the likes of the financial minister. How has the performance in the last 1 year influenced the state of affairs when it comes to the money Nigeria has, and the money Nigeria wants, and the money Nigeria needs, and the money Nigeria gets? Question one could only wait to provide for. But finally, the Nigerian lawmakers are stepping up to the occasion. They're asking the questions that one may say, where were they for a long time to have hesitated to ask this very needful question? Some weeks ago, Senator Dino Melaye did stand up to address the Red Chamber after they came back from 2 months recess and said exactly, oh yes, this is the time for us to constitute a board for the Central Bank of Nigeria. In other words, for the board to help govern the affairs of the country, essentially to avoid where we are at this point in time. What has CBN done this year? One of the first monetary policy committee meeting they had this year, they chose in the same week the budget was due to come out, the 2016 budget was due to come out, to increase interest rate. Wait, I'll explain it for you. It's not as bad as it sounds. Forgive the big words. It's the same math you do when you choose to say, we are not eating tuwo today, we are eating gari, we are making gari, or we are drinking the gari, depending on the choice and the level of how things have gone in your own. Do you know that fundamental choice? You know, there are days you put up a timetable on the wall of the kitchen and you say, on Monday morning, it's going to be rice and dodo. And in the afternoon, we would see, maybe we should just have eba. And late in the evening, you choose to decide, well, the kids have not really had fried rice in a long time. Let's go with fried rice and a little bit of coleslaw. But I'm guessing that timetable, if you still have it in your kitchen, is not playing out as originally planned right now. It's almost what one would describe, and I quote now, eat as you go. Eat what you find. Eat the cabbage, eat the carrots, eat the potatoes as much as you can. Well, that's the plan. The interest rates that the CBN moved around possibly tweaked what one will best describe as the financial timetable for the country for the year 2016. At some point, they moved it around, and the 2016 budget was released, and we're back and forth. One would almost conveniently say that was the start of the inflation problem going forward or increasing beyond where it was at the time. And that was about February this year. But let's move forward again. So soon and so suddenly, the CBN decided yet again with the MPC and all the people to say, hey, this time around, we are going to keep interest rate the way it is. And that means no matter the income of daddy, no matter the income of mommy, or even if uncle comes home to join us, we will continue to eat fried rice and jollof and dodo, irrespective of whether only 2 people or 1 has started or has continued or has retained this job in the house, as one will find. Do you get the example? I'm sure you're getting this example. Easy analogy for you to relate with as regards what has been going on. Not throwing the blame game here, just pointing out how one could easily understand the economic figures and how they play out essentially. Now, the Nigerian lawmakers have spoken up and said it's time to possibly relieve Godwin Emefiele, who is the CBN governor, of his job. They say he should be sacked for his mismanagement of the Nigeria's currency, considering the foreign exchange continued to gain ground. Does anybody remember the last time the Naira exchanged for below 400 Naira? Do you? If you do, I'm sure you get to call in. But that's where the trouble is. It has constantly gone up and up and up. And even when it was going up against other foreign exchange figures, it was said by the CBN governor, let all the exchange rate at 199 Naira to a dollar. That was where the problem really did start of. The exchange rate saying, against all fiction, we're going to put things up this way. Do you know that part in an own video when apparently they shoot and the person is shot somewhere in the shoulder or close to the heart, and for some reason it doesn't go down, he is able to fight on, and that only happens in movies? My guess is when you keep figures that are not realistic as perceived by people who understand economics to a large extent the way they are, one is likely to run into the trouble. So at some point, CBN said 199 Naira would exchange for a dollar, even though by the time fuel subsidy calculation and increase in fuel price to 145 Naira was to be done, there was a little bit of adjustment again. The calculation did see the real market value, the real life value of the Naira to the dollar being used in that calculation as against the figures that were pronounced earlier on television and across media, as one would find. Now, the lawmakers are saying the CBN governor should be sacked, he should be relieved of his job. But will that solve the chaos already on ground? Will taking out the man who possibly had laid the framework of where we are out of his position get things better? Or should a board be constituted for him? Remember, a board for the CBN would mean his powers, he would have to reason more with more people, with more elements, with more people agreeing or disagreeing regarding what should be ideally done in this regard. Now, we are about to borrow money. The IMF is predicting that we will be out of recession by the year 2017. However, with that prediction, they also say much of the increase or marginal increase that Nigeria would have is 0.6%. Don't be confused. It's easy to explain. Do you remember the example I gave yesterday when we're doing the multiplication table where you have 1 times 1 equals to 1? You remember that one? Now imagine a situation where you have a number that is less than 1. This time it's 0.6. When you multiply 0.6 against anything like 1, you're likely going to get 0.6. If you multiply 0.6% against the 2017 budget, which, by the way, I understand there been an addition to the amount of money and is sitting close to 6 trillion Naira, it's likely it will be less than the way it has been. So, essentially, the IMF is saying 0.6, that's how much growth Nigeria is expected to perceive or to go on in the next 1 year, which will be 2017. Now, another point of call is that the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics has given out different figures that says, no, the real life figure or the figure that would work would be more than that. My question is, who do you believe? I'll leave it open. Now, another point of concern at this time would be the debt profile of Nigeria. IMF, you may say, what on earth is their business? Why can't they face their own business? Why do you have to bring your face into my own face, me and face you? You remember when you have a face me and face you, BQ, and you do have Mama A, Mama Taiwo, and next to Mama Taiwo's house would have to be Mama Kende, and next to her is Mama Ido. Wait, that example looks complicated. If you're the Taiwo Kende Idowu platform, let's use some interesting names. Mama Nkechi, and then the next person next to Mama Nkechi is Mama Panche. And then the next person who lives after Mama Panche would have to be Mama Kundum. Wait, do you understand the common factor suddenly? Panche is somewhere in Plateau State. Kundum is a name from Plateau State. But Mama Nkechi is not a name from Plateau State. This time, Nigeria may be considered as Mama Nkechi. And then you have Mama Panche, who possibly is World Bank, who wants to borrow Nigerian money. And then you have Mama Kundum, who is IMF, the guy who has no business in this business, but everything about this business is absolutely his business. What do I mean? If the World Bank was to give Nigeria a loan, the IMF gets to possibly have a profile, a financial profile of how well Nigeria is doing or not doing. In this case, I suspect you agree with me that we may not be doing exactly fine. So why should the World Bank borrow us money that will last us 20 years with low interest rates? If then that's the case, it brings about the conditions the IMF once asked for before now, which essentially was the concept of devaluation. Well, the IMF assistant director, and head of fiscal policy and surveillance, Katrina Patilio, was speaking in Washington, D.C., and she expressed concerns concerning the recession challenges of Nigeria and the rise of public debt that needs to be checked. Wait for it, I'll explain. She said the rise in cost of servicing, which is about 45% of the country's estimated revenue, is a source of concern. The recurrent expenditure, when we do collect loan, is it going to be for capital projects, which would be creating new things, or would it be exactly about paying for what has already been known, like paying salaries, like bailing out governors, like bailing out states, and many of the regular lineup that we already are familiar with? This becomes the question of the day. In the meantime, Minister Kemi Adeosun, who was also in attendance at that conference, addressed a few issues. She said developed countries and multilateral institutions are among the reasons why Nigeria is not going forward. And what exactly is the fact that they have found a way to keep Nigeria from underdeveloping? No, wait. Is this blame game not done at home anymore only? Is the blame game duly the one that involves other countries? Do you agree with her? Let me give you the reasons to agree with her. One of the points she raised in that very conference was, for example, many of the developed countries are saying, we don't want to use coal anymore to generate electricity. But guess what? Nigeria has a lot of coal right now. Why can't we generate electricity using coal? That's her argument. On one hand, she says the developed countries like the United States, UK, want us to use solar and wind. But that is quite expensive, isn't it? How many of you have solar fans in your house? Is it the same price that it costs to buy a solar fan that it would also cost to buy a regular fan? Good question. So she says, we, unfortunately for Nigeria, or better still, clever enough for us, we've also signed agreements that has to do with climate change. When I say climate change, the part that says do not burn coal because it causes greenhouse gas and the rest of the other emissions. Yes, it's true. Coal has its own side effect. But then what do you do when you sit on burning coal? Do you walk on burning coal, or do you allow the coal to just burn out without using it to generate electricity? Have they technically held Nigeria from developing? What do we do? What would happen if one day the much oil that we've talked about no longer is valid or in use like it has always been in use, and the world chooses to say, no, we're not using oil anymore, we want to use something different? And by the way, let me also mention this, that the U.S. crude or the Brent oil has increased above $50 right now. Meanwhile, the other parts of the world, the supply figures is not looking good right now for those of us who are into oil business. Not me, I mean Nigeria into oil business. If I was into oil business, my name should be named something else. What would be the name of my oil company? I only can start to imagine. But these are some of the arguments that is going on. Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachuku, has assured Nigerians that between $3 billion to $4 billion loan will be coming away from China soon enough. I was looking at the financial map of China recently, and I tell you, they claim there's a lot of places to spend more money on at this time. That's according to much of their account. But I tell you, Dr. Kachuku is strongly claiming with the money coming in and with the bilateral committees or group of people working this out, by the end of this month, at least 40 Chinese investors would possibly be part of the country's deliberation as regards. And well, after 1 year of much work, things will go better. It lists some companies to expect from China. China North Industries Corporation, China Cedar Asset Management Company, China National Offshore Corporation, China Petroleum and Chemical Corporation, Andax Petroleum, and International Chamber of Commerce / China's National Development and Reform Commission, among others. This brings for the very simple debate about how well things are really going between the relationship between Nigeria and China. What else are we providing? What else are they bringing on board? That's the question to ask. And will China's money somehow provide an efficient Naira currency to become better? Or will the story turn out different?